Armand here with your forecast for the week of June 23rd of 2025. The sun is the star of this week. See what I did there? Because, the sun is a star, right? Having just got into the sign of Cancer, the solstice, the Cancer solstice, probably for most of us, it's the summer solstice, but it might be the winter solstice for you if you're down below the equator. But we talked about that a lot last week. But then Saturn gets in, excuse me, the sun gets into Cancer. The first thing he does, again, late on Friday night, the 20th, and then around Sunday, squaring Saturn. There's a lot of that's a very work kind of oriented feel to things, taking things rather seriously. Although the sun in Cancer is okay, and Saturn is not very happy in Aries. But the sun loves Aries, so the two probably can work things out. Usually, kind of an ego deflating kind of aspect, Sun square Saturn, maybe a little bit less so this time around. Probably very work oriented, and I would see it as being a check on the power of executives and royalty and so on. That's the way I would look at it. But, we'll have to see how things go. What's not an ego deflating aspect is the sun's meeting with Jupiter on the 24th. I've heard people call that the luckiest day of the year. They didn't really specify if it was going to be good luck or bad luck. And I guess I like to think of it as being, what works for you. What works for you. You never know when your chart is getting hit by a nice little, let's say, a little Valentine from Jupiter or Venus or something like that. So you're never quite sure what's going to be good for you as an individual. But indeed, the Sun conjunct Jupiter should be pretty good. The thing is, it comes right on the heels of the Sun square to Neptune, right? And so the Sun squares Saturn. That's a little bit sort of keeping the creative and executive power in check. And then there's a square to Neptune, and Neptune's in Aries. And here we kind of have the sense of like, well, you held me back for a minute, but now I can do what I want to do. Especially with the sun going on to meet with Jupiter. So this is the beginning of the week. Maybe we're coming off a slight bit of a rough period on the weekend there. Maybe a little bit of work that we have to get done. Maybe a little bit of, maybe we have a little serious conversation here and there. But then the sun goes on to square Neptune and then meet with Jupiter. So like the feeling is a little bit one of inflating things, seeing a little too much maybe in someone, or seeing a little too little in someone. With the sun tangles with Neptune, we tend to see heroes and demons where we might otherwise just see people. Um, Neptune has the ability to kind of, excuse me, I apologize. Neptune has the ability to get us to make heroes and demons. It's sort of like a fairy tale, like this person is really the one who's screwing you up and making things miserable for you. And this is the person that you should go and save, or that's going to come and save you. All of that kind of silly stuff goes on when the sun and Neptune tangle with each other. It's not a silly aspect, though. It's not something that is necessarily going to be, going in a ridiculous direction. It's a very creative aspect. It's an aspect that could be just plain fun a good deal of the time, with the Sun, Neptune. It allows for creativity, it allows for play. And this is what we have going on as we begin the week, the Sun, Neptune aspect. If you treat this as an opportunity to play, to be creative, to try things out, to see what works, to do a little as if, to have a fantasy, or, just talk about possibilities, it's great. If you take stuff seriously, not so much. And then we had that Sun Jupiter aspect, which is sort of coloring all of the above, and it just sort of makes it more and perhaps makes things lucky. And then on Wednesday, we have the Cancer new moon, which is very close to Jupiter still. The moon is going to, after all, just pass by Jupiter and then meet with the sun. And so this Cancer new moon is filled with possibilities for things to do with Cancerian issues like home and family and house, and also jovial Jupiterian issues like travel and education and things like that. You know, is it going to happen in a moment? I don't know, but it might be a good time to set intentions around those things. Of course, all of these aspects, these sun aspects, Saturn, Neptune, Jupiter, new moon, all of this on the collective level is going to play out with a different sort of vibe. But on the personal level, I think that we can kind of do some kind of good stuff with this energy. We come out of that with Mercury sextiling Uranus, who's at the very last degree of Taurus, and the Sun is actually going to go on and make a constructive sextile to Mars. It seems like sort of like midweek beyond, let's say a Thursday, Friday feel has a kind of a little bit more productive. The moon is still very new. I wouldn't start major projects, but if you want to kind of get going on something, if you want to get going on something, this is not a bad time. Now, Mercury goes into Leo on June 28th. Mercury is not too happy in Leo, or we shouldn't be too happy with Mercury in Leo because there's a little too much emphasis on drama. There's a little bit too much emphasis. It's great for creativity again. It's great for playing. It's great for considering the possibilities. When it comes to actually like, making something real, yeah, it can go either way. It's another, not the Sun Neptune, but it is a little similar in terms of our communication. What does Mercury do when he gets into Leo? He trines Saturn in Aries. So here we have forceful communication. This is more direct communication. And then Mercury goes on to trine Neptune. And again, well, we can kind of make a good story. So, is it is it a believable kind of story that we're going to get out of the end of the week? I don't really know. I would tend to think we could kind of massage the facts in any way we want them to go. Well, we don't actually really have to confront facts all that much, except on June 29th. So let's say the weekend, 28th and 29th, we're going to have Mercury opposite Pluto. Mercury opposite Pluto. This could be in the sign of Leo, this could be the individual who speaks to the crowd and says, this is what I think, this is the way things are going to be. Or it could be the crowd that speaks to the individual and says, this is what we think. It can go either way. That's collective level stuff. On a personal level, now this is an opportunity to speak your truth. This is the opportunity to say what's on your mind, to get your message out there. Of course, with Mercury and Leo, maybe you're sort of, gilding the lily a little bit, but it's still an opportunity for a frank discussion. All right, that's what we have. We see a lot of energy at the beginning of the week, and then after the new moon on Wednesday, we sort of work it out. We sort of figure out what to do with things on a more personal level. Think of things being exciting and kind of up in the air. Well, up in the air and kind of exciting until Wednesday, and then, gradually workable as we get through the week. You think? Maybe. Also, too, let's see, June 30th. The next forecast would be June 30th. And so my Uranus in Gemini has to come out, I guess, well, I'll talk about that next week.